Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of Straight Trooper Talk. I am Christopher Mace, and I am going to be your host for the next little bit. And today we have a gentleman on here that I have been trying to get on for a while, and we finally got him on. I had the pleasure of working with him myself, and he's such a just a good person, great individual, and one of the smartest men that I know in our field of work. However, he actually went a little bit further into the Department of Public Safety in South Carolina and was a part of the MAIT team. And I'm going to get him to tell you about that MAIT team because it's a specialized unit. And it's unlike anything I've ever saw. But anyways, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Bruce Stanley Brock, or Bruce Brock is what we like to call him. He was a lieutenant, and he is retired, so I still call him Lieutenant. So, Lieutenant, welcome, and thank you for coming today, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for being with me and letting us pick your brain a little bit.
No, man, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the kind words.
I mean everything I said. I've always held you on a pedestal when it comes to accident reconstruction and law enforcement in general. I mean, I don't think there's a question that I never asked you that I just didn't come away a little bit wiser, if you will. But anyways, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in law enforcement?
Yeah, so basically, currently I'm 55, married with two children. Both are grown. One's 26, one's 21. One just graduated from pharmacy school, University of Tennessee, and one just started a full-time firefighting job in Greenville. Basically, how I got involved in law enforcement was going to college, had 3 years under my belt, and just got to the point that it didn't feel right.
Right.
And was sitting one morning, just thinking, happened to open up a local paper, and the Highway Patrol, Cyclone Highway Patrol, was advertising we need troopers. And I said, you know what, that might be a good thing for me. At the time, I was engaged to still my current wife of, good gosh, 32 years, maybe 33. Right. Yeah, I know, 21.
And what year was it?
32 years. 32 is this year. So
around when was
32 this July. This was back in 88, 89. Right, okay. 89. Okay. Yeah, we were both going to Lander University at the time. Of course, then it was college, but Lander University, and so I said this might be an opportunity for me to do something different with my life. Basically, growing up here, I live in a little rural community in Oconee County, Takena Crossroads. One Baptist church, and the community knew everybody in the community knew everybody. My dad was real active in the volunteer fire department, so I had him to look up to. Still look up to him, respect him, and honor him. But a lot of older men in the community at the time was involved in church. We were really involved in our local church here. And it got me interested in the fire department. So when I could, I got involved with that. That was in 1985.
85.
Currently still 1985, yes, sir. So, still involved with that today. Actually, took back over the role for my brother, as a matter of fact. He said, I need to step down a minute. So took back over the role as chief of this fire department. So, yeah, I mean, but the patrol was just something. So I've been kind of involved in community service and those kind of things, and I saw it my whole entire life. So, like I said, a lot of men I look up to in this community, were actively doing it and kind of the heroes. And of course, Dad's always a hero, but
Absolutely.
um, got to follow some of his footsteps. But anyway, uh, applied for the Highway Patrol in 1990, and you know, we had to take our PT test in
Mm.
Columbia. So I said, I don't want to be late for nothing. I don't want to start this thing off
Right.
wrong. So I went down the night before, and it seemed like the World Series was on. So I was laying in the hotel room, and I said, I'm going to do some push-ups and sit-ups just to get ready for tomorrow. So basically, I blew myself out.
Oh
Got out
no.
the next morning and failed the PT test by like 4 sit-ups or something like that. Did the run, did the push-ups, but they say, hey, you're done. You got to go
Oh
home.
no.
So didn't let that discourage me. Come back and reapplied. Sergeant Crane was in contact with
Remember
Sergeant
him.
Crane then, the recruiter for South Carolina Highway Patrol, and reapplied, went back, took the PT test, no problems. Went before the board and dumb interview questions. Sergeant Crane come out. He's like, Bruce, he said, man, they want you to come back one more time. They just think they did something. I said, well, okay, Sergeant, that's what they want. That's what I want. So we'll do it. So third time the charm. That was the first of
Do
'91.
you know what the hang up?
So basically, got
Do you
in
know what
the
the hang up what? Do you know what
sir.
the hang up was?
Basically,
Background or something?
I decided to put. Well, I no, I decided to put myself through
Oh, okay,
college.
gotcha.
I didn't ask my parents to do it. So I initially started my college career at Coastal Carolina,
Oh,
and I went down there. There was 3 of my friends supposed to go with me. We were going to split the cost and everything. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. So basically, when it got time to leave, I was on the one that left. So after a semester, I said, yeah, I can't afford this. I got to go
right.
back home. Um, so I came back and went to Tri County Tech. Here in Pendleton and just kept working on my credits. And then, of course, right after I came back, I met Glenda, my wife, and she was we worked together. Had a little part time job at Winn Dixie in
Oh, okay.
Walla, and she was at Tri County Tech, so we met, got to dating, and then she went to Lander, and I said, well, let me go to Lander. So we ended up there, and like I said, that's basically where I got burnt out at. Said, okay, I'm done with it, and started applying. So, like I said, first class was in '90, early '90. I applied, didn't make it. Second class was late '90 for the beginning of '91, and so basically, to answer your question, is they said you're not really showing at 22 years old, you're really settled. You went to this college and in this college and this college, so we're not sure we want to invest the time and money in you. Show you really want this. Come back one more
And, and,
time.
and I'm gonna, if I
So
can, right there.
go
I
ahead.
that was so the times. I don't know the words to explain it, but that was so the times to get on the highway patrol. I know, especially in South Carolina at that time, was so hard. I mean, you would have, I was told, 8, 10,000 people apply. You were a supervisor,
Yeah,
so you could tell me more about that. But if you had something on your credit, a ding on your credit, I was told at the age of about 14, whatever you do, don't ever get in trouble, not even a fight in school.
right,
The
right.
so I definitely, it took me 6 tries to get on the highway patrol, and on the seventh I finally
Okay.
got on. But the same, not the same thing, but it was always just something. Are you ready? Are you mature enough? Right. So
And you're right. I mean, the funny part, the application then, and I loved Highway Patrol. I mean, that's why I kept
I
going
did too.
back. Um, but the application said only the best can
Yep.
qualify. And I mean, it showed, and I can't help but believe that trial to get on the patrol kind of helped build me in the way that I need to be. uh, I don't know what's the words to
The
use
man you
here.
become.
Got me on the
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah.
path to become what I was, because I felt like my mom and my dad, you know, was married 40 something years. Um, they pointed me in the right direction. Like I said, I had good leadership. I had several troopers here in the community that I looked up to, respected, communicated with, the whole 9 yards. So I went back the third time, went before the board, once again passed PT test, and went before the board. And Sergeant Crane come out, grinned, and he's like, Bruce, they're gonna take you this time, man. You in. So class started April, I think it was April 6th, April 7th of 1991. And, we got there, just busted my tail because I'm trying to prove something to somebody now. Graduated June 28th. They called me up front. They said, hey, we're going to give away this award to the best trainee, and come on up here, Bruce. And I was just totally blown away. But, after being turned down a couple of times, and it's like to come in here the third time and finally receive the Colonel P.F. Thompson Award, it's just amazing.
Absolutely.
Because all I done was just what I was told to do, but I done it to the best of my ability. So, if you need me to stop me, you tell me to stop. I'm just going to tell you my story, okay?
You go right ahead.
So basically, graduated June 28th and came and reported to Troop 3 headquarters in Greenville, South Carolina on July the 2nd of 1991, where I met my training officer, Jimmy Chastain. Who turned out to be just an amazing person, amazing friend for me. So met him, we went back to Anderson and started working. And actually, Jimmy was the one that got me into the mindset of MAIT and reconstructing collisions, because it was something that obviously wasn't around then, but several of them who turned out to be very influential in my career, had already started doing some things, because the patrol had saw a need, but not to have a team. It wasn't that big of a demand at that point.
Before you go any further into the MAIT team or MAIT, before you go further, I'm going to get you to explain exactly what that means. But before you do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break for our sponsors. And if you would, Lieutenant, just hang tight, and everybody else, hang tight and come right back to Straight Trooper Talk, where I have Lieutenant Bruce Brock with the South Carolina Highway Patrol MAIT team. Come on back.
I've seen this type of accident so many times throughout my career. It happens. And when it does, it doesn't affect just the person involved, it affects their family for years to come. Medical expenses, all sorts of things. You may not know who to call, but I do. I've been there. I've seen this so many times. Call 1-855-TROOP-TALK, and we can get you the help you need.
All right. Thank you so much for coming back. I have Lieutenant Bruce Brock. He was with the South Carolina Highway Patrol. He's retired now, like me. He was with a specialized group with the MAIT team. We've been talking about his personal life and where he's from and how he got to where he got to. And now we're up to the point where he's on the highway patrol now, and he's stationed in, I believe the largest county in South Carolina, which is Greenville County. Most people think of Columbia when they think of South Carolina, but actually Greenville is the largest county. But anyways, Bruce, you're in Greenville County, and Mr. Chastain is your training officer. Take us from there.
Yes, sir. Basically, Anderson County.
Oh, Anderson.
Yeah, I was actually, my first assignment was Anderson County. But anyway, so while, then we rode for a month with our training officer and riding around, during the shifts, talking with Jimmy Chastain. He he sparked this interest in reconstructing collisions. Um, not to take anything away from anybody, but it was like, this is something I want to push myself. I want to challenge myself to do these things. So, I finished my time with training with him and stayed in Anderson from 91. Of course, we're still working with him from, shifts here and there, talking. And one of my classmates from patrol school, which actually went to high school with me, we drove back and forth, and it was funny because his wife and my wife went to high school together in Walhalla.
Right.
And so Randy was working one night in Anderson, and he was about to go home and got chasing a motorcycle, rolled his Mustang, and ultimately lost his life.
Yes.
So that's when our director then, Boykin Rose, really saw the need to do something to have in-depth collision investigation. Right. Now, let me go back. We talked about MAIT. MAIT is Multidisciplinary Accident Investigation Team, and multidisciplinary is all the aspects of collision investigation. Right. Commercial motor vehicles, cars, motorcycles, pedestrians, all the disciplines of any of those investigations is what we tried to specialize in. And we done that with specialized equipment. So, like I said, Randy's wreck really opened the Highway Patrol's eyes, I believe, and the director's eyes. So they saw a need for that. Then shortly after that, MAIT began. You actually had to test into the program. So the first opportunity I had to test, I tested into the program, was fortunate enough to make it, and began what they called MAIT associate training, which was basically you would come back to your home. By this time, I transferred from Anderson to Oconee because this was in 2000. So basically, I was in Anderson from 91 to 98. I came back home, Oconee, in 98. So in 2000, I went, took the test, and was accepted into the MAIT associate program, where I met several other people that was just as passionate about collision investigation, and once again turned out to be super people, super leaders, people I could go to anytime. So not only did I have Jimmy now, but I had people like Randall Maffitt, Ricky Dixon, David Mothers, Gary Jarrett, Matt Sims.
I know all those guys.
Just super guys that David Lee, James Day. These were Joyce Myrick. These were the original of the MAIT. Dale Smith.
Oh, wow.
Original. Yeah. Original of the MAIT. And of course, at the time, there were 3 teams, one in Greenville, one in Columbia, and one in Charleston. And they would work the high-profile cases, not Highway Patrol related, because it basically said, hey, we can't investigate our own crashes. So we would assist in other matters, felony DUIs that involve data.
If I can stop you right there, what exactly does MAIT stand? MAIT. What does that stand for?
All right. So like I said, while ago, that's Multidisciplinary Accident Investigation Team. And like I said, we would do that. Those guys would do those things, and I mean, they had been in business for a while, and I mean, the reputation that they had across the state of South Carolina and even the neighboring states.
Absolutely.
Because at the time, I mean, the idea come from California Highway Patrol.
Oh, really?
I think a couple of those guys. Yeah, I think a couple of the guys went out there and actually saw their system and kind of come back and tweaked it to meet our needs here in South Carolina. And, just from there, just built something awesome. So basically, like I said, the MAIT associate was somebody that was trained MAIT-wise with at-scene investigation, technical investigation, reconstruction, how to use a total station for documenting collision scenes to scale, photography, interview interrogation.
And let me say this, for those out there who are wondering, or from different states and stuff like that, especially up north and out west, the down south, the highway patrol is mainly a vehicle enforcement agency. I know you up north and out west, state police, you do criminal investigations and stuff like that. But down south, the highway patrol is, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, for places like that. It's mainly vehicle enforcement, and so we take care of crashes. So that's what we do. We take care of that. That was one of our specialties, was was automobile accidents. And what you're fixing to get into is what I want you to explain is within accidents. Every trooper knows how to work a wreck, but there are those times when the MAIT team is called in, and it's those times that you're talking about right now, correct?
That's right. That's right. So as a MAIT associate, because they're, basically the whole patrol would light to look at all fatal collisions, but obviously the teams was not big enough, and the demand was too big for it. So that's where the MAIT associate program come from. So what we would do, several people, that I finished my career with, and right before me, we all went through the MAIT associate program together, got to know each other, and actually was able to keep building on it. But we went back, we got trained. It was about an 8-week program. We got trained and we came back to our respective counties. And if there was a fatal collision, in a chargeable fatal collision in our county, then we would go out and we would make a determination. Hey, is this going to be something more than we can handle on our own, or is this to get the full MAIT team out there? If we can handle it, then we'll handle it. So in most cases, my sergeant here was like, look, you tell me what you need, and we'll make it happen. So super supervisor, and was just good to work for.
So you were a part of the original class of MAIT associates.
Well,
or close.
Yes, the second, because the original class was the team, so I guess it was kind of maybe the first MAIT associate class. But we would come out and like I said, if it was a crash, and I'd go take the pictures, mark the scenes, do my field sketches, try to get some interviews. And then I would go to the sergeant and say, look, of course, then I would call the Greenville team or the Piedmont team leader, which was Sergeant Matt Sims at the time, and say, hey, can you send one person over here with the equipment and help me document these scenes? And that's what we do. And then, of course, I'd go to my local sergeant, Sergeant Brown, and say, hey, can I take 2 days next week and go work on my case at the MAIT team at headquarters? Well, not the MAIT team headquarters, but at the Piedmont team office. And so I was able to go over there, sit down, and use their computers with the necessary programs to come up with to scale drawings and so forth of these collisions. Now, you said a while ago that primarily we were collision investigators. We assisted in those investigations, but in the course of, gosh, I started that in 2000 and I retired in 2018. So 27 and a half years total patrol, 10 and a half years was on the road, and 17 was with the MAIT team. Like I said, I was able to work with several awesome people, throughout the state. A lot of training, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of long days in office. But everybody there that was on the MAIT team, men, women, it didn't make a difference. They all took pride in their job, which was just an awesome group of people to work with. Not only were troopers, but I'm on the specialized unit where these people take pride in what they're doing. But over the time, we had opportunities to, one of the first things we'd done when I went full time with the team, and the Piedmont team is where I was started with, was a murder investigation for Clemson
So you
City.
go from you were a MAIT associate, now you're on the MAIT team itself. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
yes. So I started, like I said, MAIT associate 2000, full time MAIT in 2001, and right after the first part of 2002. Uh, they requested us to come out with our forensic mapping equipment, and they had a murder that the subject had left this house and had walked this road, almost within sight distance, and had murdered somebody. So they're like, can you give us a scale diagram for court purposes? So we went down there, and that's what we did. We assisted Clemson City with this thing. We've been involved in a lot of cross training, which was awesome.
You guys did get involved on the criminal side of things. Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. I mean, and that was the thing about it. Because a lot of cross training, photography classes, the forensics, the fingerprinting, the interview interrogation, a lot of cross training with cities and counties, which was, just kind of, helped you get MAIT's name out there. And as a result of that, you'd get a phone call. Hey, we got a murder in a convenience store. Can you come in and forensically map the entire parking lot and store for court purposes, so we can show where the casings were, where the forensic evidence was, and where the money was dropped outside. And so we, had opportunities to do that. Plane crashes. We were able to work in several plane crashes where you go out there and just do a forensic mapping of the plane crash. I know we did one. We did one in Anderson, and I think they did one in Columbia on the Midlands team. One time we got called in to help with a suicide where an inmate had actually managed to hang himself in a cell, and it was going to civil court, and they asked us to come in. Could we forensically map the inside of the jail so they could show where the death sergeant was and where the cell was, and so forth. So boat crashes. Midlands has worked several boat crashes. I know we worked one here in Anderson that I can remember just off the top of my head that involved, somebody lost their life in a boat crash. And we went out there and forensically mapped the edge of the lake and where the boat was found underwater and so forth. So just so many different avenues that we were able to do. Not only that, but we also taught outside agencies. They said, "Hey, we want to start our own teams. We want better collision investigation. We want more collision investigation. Will you come in?" So most of us went back and got certified through the state academy as instructors, and we would go out to different agencies and put on the at-scene classes, the technical classes, the recon classes, and assist them with mapping equipment and those things. MAIT and the Highway Patrol. The Highway Patrol really supported MAIT and getting conferences, which are still going on today here in South Carolina, where we have people from all over the United States would come to get the training that we were putting on here at our conferences. And it began in Myrtle Beach, and then it went to Charleston, and that's where it's at.
The reputation of the MAIT team, I remember it was, you had a couple of specialized units within the South Carolina Highway Patrol, but it was the MAIT team and the ACE team, and those guys were the best of the best. I guess you could call it the Navy SEALs or whatever. They were just whatever their job was, and the ACE team's job is different from the MAIT teams, but the ACE team was the best at what they did at drug interdiction, and the MAIT team was the best at what they did at advanced collision reconstruction. I'm going to stop right here, Lieutenant, if you would just bear with me for a little bit so we can get our sponsors and stuff in for another commercial break. everybody, I am with Lieutenant Bruce Brock, and if you will, just come on back and we will continue our talk with Lieutenant Brock in reference to the MAIT team and his career on Straight Trooper Talk.
Troopers across America are known for being the best of the best. We're called in some of the worst situations. When other agencies can't handle things, they call in state troopers. You know that we're there for you. A trooper's known to get the job done. A trooper's known to be above and beyond and be the best that they can be. When you find yourself in a situation that's difficult, your journey is just beginning, and you're going to need a lawyer that's going to be there just like a state trooper is, the best of the best. Go to straighttroopertalk.com. There's a link in there, and you say contact a lawyer. It's people that we know that's going to fight for you and be there for you just like a trooper.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Straight Trooper Talk. And I'm so glad that I have my guest with me today, and I'm so glad that you guys have joined me. I am with Lieutenant Bruce Brock. He is retired. He is from the South Carolina Highway Patrol. His specialty was advanced vehicle reconstruction. There was a team, and still are a team, that I consider the best in the United States at what they do. And they're called the MAIT team. This gentleman to my right on my split screen was one of the people who was the foundation of that team, of the MAIT team. And it was so very important. There's so many important cases that came to his desk, or he took the call on, that people just don't realize. And we're going to get into them in just a little bit. He is a firefighter, as you can hear in the background. He is actually a chief. So anyways, we're going to get into some of those high profile, some of those cases got nationwide attention, but I'm going to let you take over from there. But like I say, you guys were called upon for some really big stuff.
Oh yeah. They and like I said, just for the Highway Patrol to recognize the need for this, and for me to have an opportunity to be a part of it was just, I can't say enough about the patrol and MAIT. Like I said, the guys that started this thing, and the men and women out there, they're still out there in the middle of the night doing their thing, still doing an awesome job. There's still a big need for it. Unfortunately, that was one thing I always said. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if the citizens of South Carolina would put me out of business.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, that wasn't happening too much. But no, you're right. I mean, and the original group that come in there, when they come in, it was, what is this voodoo y'all bring into the courtroom? But those guys got in there. Those guys and gals, as a matter of fact, got in there and they made themselves, built up such a reputation of being, hard workers and trustworthy and honest, and didn't matter how the chips fell, you gonna get the chips. This is what we're presenting is true, and I don't personally, for me, from the time I went on the MAIT team, the Piedmont team, and worked myself up through the ranks, was able and fortunate enough to work myself up through the ranks and work with those good people. I think I testified 6 times as an expert in the field of collision reconstruction in the state. And, the other people was doing the same thing throughout the state. And I can't, for me, now it may have, okay, but for me, I can't remember any time that we actually, if we went to trial, because, when they got our, 100 plus page investigation with the photographs and the interviews, digital photography, pictures, calculations. We didn't leave a lot of questions. Didn't leave a lot of defenses. So, I don't recall any case I was involved with that we actually lost, and I can't think of anybody prior. Maybe in the beginning there might have been one or two just kind of you know getting into the deep end of the pond, but
I've
um,
never, I've
you know,
never heard of the mate team. I've never heard of the mate team coming in, assisting a trooper, and that trooper losing the case, whether it be a fatal
yeah,
felony DUI or anything like that. Because when you guys came in, the judge knew what was going on, prosecutors, defense, everybody, and it was most of the time something was done before the case even got started if the mate team was brought in.
and like I said, that's just hats off to the men and women that started the
Right.
program and made sure and held those after to the same standards, and hopefully they're still being held up to today. I know they're still working their hindies off. That's for dang sure. Uh, but we've had captains come in. After Captain Chastain retired, which was funny because like I said earlier, Jimmy was my training officer when I came on the patrol, and Jimmy actually retired as my captain on the mate team.
That's right.
So basically, a lot of time with him throughout my career as a mentor and a leader. But after he retired, you know, Rob Lee came
Right.
through, and Rob Lee was one of the ones that was in the MAIT associate program with me, and he brought his spin to it. He held the same standard, but he put his spin on it. So it kind of got kicked up a little notch, and then after that, Captain Dangerfield come in and continue to build on the success of what was originally started.
So captain is within the mate team. Captain is the highest ranking uh, supervisor, right? Okay.
Yes, yes. At the time I retired, I was the field lieutenant, so I would travel to the four teams at this point. Had the Piedmont team in Greenville, the Midlands team in Columbia, the Coastal team in Charleston, and the PD team
Is
in
there only one
Florence.
lieutenant, or
There was two lieutenants. They had the office lieutenant who would be up there to assist the captain in the day-to-day operations, and then then I had the field lieutenant when I would try to go and assist the teams as best I
okay?
could. Back in them days. But like you said, it was a lot of several high-profile cases. Of course, it's always terrible. Always, that was always the bad part about it was the loss of life in most cases that we went out. And we did do the felony DUIs where great bodily injury was involved, but all our other cases was pretty much, had death involved some way, form, or
Right.
fashion. And it was, always there's never an easy way to deal with that. I know myself and several other members that I talked to throughout my career. You pull up on a scene, you know what you're pulling up on because you've been
Right.
told, you've been briefed on what you're going to, and you get out of the car and you say, "Hey, this is my job. This is my job." Somebody has pretty much lost their life here, if not multiple people, and my job now is to represent them to the best of my ability. And for me personally, that was always the biggest fear I had, is to put that case together and then go to court to represent that deceased brother, sister, mother, daughter, whatever, father, and not and to lose a trial over some mistake that I made.
Right.
And that was what is instilled in MAIT from the beginning.
Right.
So that's why there's so many good
Because
investigators.
you represent that family, right? Okay.
Absolutely. But more so, you represent that member that lost his
Right.
life
Yes.
or her life. And it was always humbling to go to the ceremony every year that Patrol would put on in Columbia. Were the fatal victims. Their families were asked to come to a church down there, and we as Cyclone Highway Patrol would go and try to still be a supporting agency for those families because, basically I've heard colonel after colonel say, you know, we failed on our job. We didn't get that drunk driver before your family member lost their life. We didn't get, that leaving the scene car. We didn't get that speeder. Of course we can't be everywhere all the time, but it was humbling to sit there and watch those folks from South Carolina come and they would always have pictures displayed. Families would ask to provide pictures. And when the names would pop up on the screen in the church, if it was your family or whatever, you would stand up and just to honor them. And it was humbling to see that. And it just kind of made me want to do my job, and then others as well, not just me. I mean, I wasn't nothing special. I just done my
Right.
job. I done what I was trying to do. I was doing what I was told to do. I was, like I said, and I can't give them enough kudos to those that showed me the way, that taught me the way, that allowed me to do my thing. And those that, as I was working through my ranks, supported me from below me. And I can only thank them for, they made me look good. Is why I was able to retire as a lieutenant with the Highway
Right.
Patrol, because of those guys and girls that worked under me. So without them, I couldn't have been what I was. But, and we had a conversation just the other day, my son and I, and that was one of the first things that I done. There was some young men in the community here where I grew up my entire life. He went on a fishing trip and had run off the road down an embankment and was gone for 3 or 4 days.
Oh no.
And back then, the highway department would bush hog the sides of the roads. So the tractor was going through there bush hogging and saw the car. And of course, unfortunately, I think it was 4 lost their life in that car crash. And they were there for 3 days, and it was summertime. So you can imagine the smell
Right.
that was there. And I just got my driver's license. And my dad took me out there because it's probably about a mile, maybe from the house. And he took me out there. And there's a road. We pulled off on the road. And you get out of the car, you can immediately smell
Oh
it.
no.
And he's like, remember this, because you can get killed in a car crash. You don't know when, you don't know where. So you have to be careful. You have to be watching.
So he
I
used
tried to
this as a
instill-
parenting tool.
Exactly. So, I used MAIT as a
I'm
parenting
sure.
tool for mine. I actually made my son go with me to one of these fatal victims
Right.
ceremonies. And we talked about it the other day, and he's like, man, he said, I'm sitting there and people, names are coming up and people are standing up and they're crying. And he said, I'm crying on the news
Right.
people, but he said, it's breaking my heart to be there to see this. He said, that made a huge impact.
It's definitely emotional.
On me and the way
It's so emotional.
Yeah, exactly. And he said it made a huge impact on him and the way he drives and thinks about driving. Of course, in South Carolina, we have, this thing called the Live at 25 that you have to take through most of your schools or driver's education to get your driver's license. And I taught him through that. So, I tell the stories of some of the crashes, and I'd get upset and I'd start crying. And, it's funny to watch those young adults, look at me up there at 45 years old crying in front of them or older, because it's still touching. I can't go on vacation in South Carolina and I don't go by a cross and say, yeah, that wreck was this, or this cross was this, or, I can remember these wrecks because I either took the phone calls on them or I saw them or, I heard about them in our review committees.
And for those that are listening, that maybe are not in the law enforcement community, because we do have such a large audience, I don't think people understand what you just said, what you just alluded to, and that is, people think of police officers and troopers especially as robots, as not having emotions, not having feelings, because most of the time the interaction that the public has with a trooper is normally not pleasant. But I don't think they understand um, what actually goes on when you take the uniform off. You take that car and you pull it into your driveway, and now you're with your family, and they're like, you know, Dad, Mom, are you okay? I mean, is everything okay? And they don't know what you just saw. They don't know what you've been through. And for somebody like me and you that did it for so many years and saw so many things, you know, I read an article just the other day where statistically police officers are are in line to be not diagnosed with PTSD on about the same line as a combat veteran. And somebody said, Chris, how can that be possible? It's possible because of what you just said. You cannot go by those crosses. You cannot go by those scenes. You cannot go by a place where people lost their life and it just not flash before your eyes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, by no means I know we're special, but I guarantee you, people on highway patrol, people in law enforcement, I can speak personally for those on MAIT. I know that we wish we could forget some of the things that we've saw, and I hear working these cases, and like I said, for me, it was always I have to get out with the mindset that this is my job. I can't think about what's going on or anything like that. This is my job. How can I represent these people? And the people that I work with here on the Piedmont team, well, throughout the state, had the same thing. It was all about doing the best that they could for these things. And so far, I mean, my wife could tell you when we had several cases, you just get hard, hit hard. Because she's like, I'd get up and we'd be getting ready to go to work the next day. And she's like, you didn't sleep good last night. And, not that I had nightmares about any of them. So far, by the grace of the good Lord, everybody that I know is still going forward, and we're not struggling, up
Right.
front. And I will say, I'll get on my soapbox and take this opportunity to say, hey, if you are, please, there's help out there. There's help everywhere.
Yes.
Get you somebody, talk to somebody, if in your agency, where you come from, if you're not law enforcement, your fire department, your public service, EMS, church, I don't care. You've got somebody will listen to you. Somebody will get you help. Don't pull the wagon by yourself. You've got people that are willing to help you push it, pull it. So by all means, please do that. But, I'm fortunate enough that Glenda's always been that rock for me. And I've been able to deal with my issues, but I haven't really had any issues.
Right.
But, like I said, I still think of these things, and getting back to the parenting thing. I mean, I use it with my daughter, where her and I were shopping on the Black Friday Christmas sales, the day after Thanksgiving, and we just got home. It's a little after midnight, and phone rang. Hey, actually, I stand corrected. I apologize. The fire tones went off for us to assist my neighboring fire department to set up a landing zone due to a crash. And got up there and found out that it was actually a police pursuit from one of the cities had actually pursued some local high school students that failed to stop. And one was ejected and lost his life. So I took the fire helmet off and put the trooper hat on and went to work. But, I was able to go home, and I always did, hug the kids and the wife. Um, tell them you love them because you don't know when it's your time.
Absolutely.
But I was able to go back to Carson and say, look, this is what I'm talking about. Me and you could have been coming from town and met this. It's 2 miles from the house, and that car could have went left to center, hit us, and then there we are. Later in her high school days, she wanted to go somewhere for New Year's Eve. I said, okay, but you be home by midnight. So sure enough, she was, and 45 minutes later, phone rings. You know, uh, we've had a crash once again a few miles from the house where mom had done lost control and her two kids had got killed. So I'm like, these are examples of what can happen out there, and I use it as parenting, yeah, absolutely. But anyway.
I mean, that is wow. That's so well said, and just so that's so deep, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you brought your faith up, because that's kind of what I want to go into next. Is your faith, and I know for me personally, as a born again Christian, it's without it, I don't know if I would have gotten through some of the things that I saw and did without it. And I know your faith means a lot to you too. If you could just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it took me a while to realize it and to get saved. But Glenn and I were actually at some friends of ours' wedding in Columbia, and I asked her to marry me while we were down there, and she said she would. So we came home that Saturday and went to church that Sunday, and it was in 90 back up. It was in 1990, April of 1990. And I mean, I had to get up. I had to get out of the pew, and I went up there and I gave my life to the Lord, and I think He's blessed me beyond
Absolutely.
measure with my life, with my family, with the Highway Patrol. Me being able to make the rank that I made and to do the job that I done. I mean, there's no doubt that there had to be something back there to keep you in line with that. So, that's still strong in my life. Backslide all the time.
Yeah, we all do.
Can't see anything I don't. But, at the same time, still going forward, know where my heart's at and know where I'm going when the time comes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that I just wanted to take time and give thanks to God. And, I know it's important to me, and I certainly know it's important to you too. And I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because, a lot of times, I have said this before in interviews, and I'll say it again. Law enforcement is a lot like being a Christian. You really don't know how much or how bad you need it until you need it. I mean, how many times do we go through our life, throughout our day, and everything's going fine, and we don't think about praying or we don't think about Christ. But the first time something happens or you get that phone call, first thing you do is hit your knees. And law enforcement's the same way, especially in the climate that we're living in now, Lieutenant. It wasn't the climate that me and you were on or in back then. The climate that that the world's living in now is so totally different. And law enforcement is I'll just say it's not. We're not given, I don't think, the respect and that we used to get and stuff like that. And you just got so many things going on out there, and people don't realize how much you need the police until you need the police. It's somebody said to me one time, or they were actually speaking to a group, and they said, let me ask you a question. What if you called 911? Let's say you wasn't a friend, or you didn't like the police or whatever, but you called 911 and nobody answered, you know. So I tend to kind of equate, my faith and police work in the same way. So I'm going to stop right there, Lieutenant, and it's time to take another break. I am enjoying the talk that we're having, and it's so interesting. And when we come back, we'll get into maybe some of your more famous or more, I know some of them were nationally, uh, they were brought to the attention of the nation, some of these cases, and we'll get into that when we come back on Straight Trooper Talk. Everybody come back with me as we continue our talk with Lieutenant Bruce Brock with the South Carolina MAIT team. He is retired. Come on back.
The accidents you just saw happens in America every day. We as former troopers, we have seen it. We have knocked on doors at 3 a.m. and told people that their loved one was not coming home. What do? They're in a spot that they've never been in their life. They need help, and that help needs to come from a great lawyer. And unfortunately, they don't know which lawyers are great ones and which one aren't. We do. You give us a call at 855-TRUTH-TALK. We will not only just get you a lawyer, we will get you the lawyer.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Straight Trooper Talk. I am continuing my talk with Lieutenant Bruce Brock. He is retired from the South Carolina Highway Patrol. Most importantly, he was on a specialized group within the Highway Patrol called the MAIT team, and that team was, in my opinion, like I said once, and I'll say it again, they were the best of the best at what they did at investigating high-profile cases, high-profile fatalities, multi-fatalities, and all of these things. And, I don't think I've had a chance to tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and sharing all these things that you've shared with me, Lieutenant. And let's get in and tell the people, more importantly, about some of these cases and the magnitude of what your unit did, because you were the supervisor of the MAIT team. You may not have been the supervisor at the time of some of these incidents, but the MAIT team was involved in these incidents. Let's talk about some of those that come to mind to you.
Okay, I mean, one that comes to mind first and foremost was prior to me, which once again just goes back to the dedication that the men and women prior to me had and wanted, and the professionalism and the work mindset they had. But it was a case where a mom, because it was correlated, is how MAIT was involved with it. A mom had taken her children and reported them missing, but in actuality had taken them to a boat ramp and left them in the car and just rolled the car down the boat ramp into the lake.
Mm-hmm.
I think the team went in there, and actually several of them got certified and went under, and actually they rolled a couple of cars just to verify how the car would act underwater, what it would do, where it would come to, where it would stop at, and those things. So that was a big national case that that got a lot of attention, and excuse me, once again just showed the need for that specialized training and that specialized team. One of the more recent ones, obviously, if anybody's been watching any TV and stuff here from South Carolina. They know about the reopened case that happened in Hampton County that MAIT had investigated and basically had their opinion throughout the whole case, voiced their opinion throughout the whole case, and signed it off as it was, and now I think new light has come out due to the another investigation, and now they're reopening. I believe SLED, Cyclone Law Enforcement Division, is actually taking that case and attempting to go forward with it yet again.
In light of this new evidence?
In light of the new evidence. So, hopefully they can find something. I know our people run as deep and as wide as they possibly could go. Unfortunately, just all the facts run out, so that's where we had to end it. But
I think everybody is going to know those two cases. I think everybody that's throughout the nation, unless they haven't been around, knows those two cases. In reference to the one with in the lake, I definitely know about it. I definitely know about the one that just recently in Hampton County. I know one of the hardest things to do. I always know for me, one of the children were real hard to deal with, and other law enforcement officers. If I ever had to deal with that and work those things, what about you?
Absolutely. I mean, because you just don't, obviously, kids. For me and most of the people that work with me on the different teams, we all had children growing up, just about, and you would go to that wreck, that collision that that 8-year-old little girl lost her life, and you would go home and you would look at your 6-year-old in the eye, and go, golly bum, how lucky am I? Which, like I said, that would just made you want to do your job even more. Or your son, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's, a 15-year-old lost their life in a crash, and you go home to your 16-year-old son going, that's we don't know. Law enforcement, it's never, death in itself is bad. But when we got those calls and you go out there and it's one of your brothers or sisters, that was, willing to give their life for you if need be, and you them, and here you are out there. So once again, it just made you want to do that job to represent them in court if need be, or civilly if need be, to the best of your ability. Because I mean, those men and women gave the ultimate sacrifice.
Right. Do you have any that come to mind where
the one that comes to mind for me, just because it's home. It was in Oconee County, and it was a young deputy, middle of the night, got off on a little road, and apparently just got stuck and just kept trying to get himself out, and one thing led to another, and he was outside the vehicle, and I mean, just he lost his life. And it was, once again, some of the guys on the MAIT team knew him well. He was, obviously we couldn't do anything with the patrol, but he was with one of our local agencies, and so it was, if you didn't know him, then you knew men and women that worked along beside him. So you saw the pain in their eyes, and it was hard. It was hard. But
absolutely.
That was the one in my backyard. So that's the one that kind of sticks out in my mind the most.
And for the once again, just to preface this, for those that are watching. So when a law enforcement agency is, if they're involved in an act, if a deputy or a city police officer or someone else in law enforcement is involved in a crash, the highway patrol is called to work their crash because there doesn't want to be any conflict of interest. If the highway
That's right.
patrol, if a trooper is involved in a crash, then correct me if I'm wrong, the county sheriff's department where the crash occurred has to work it. Is that correct?
That's correct. It depends on how serious the crash is. I know there has been times that, because once again, like I said earlier, we were able to train a lot of cities and counties who had traffic units, who wanted to step their game up and provide a good service for their citizens and their communities and their county. Those guys, several of them, Greenville County had an outstanding. I think Spartanburg had one. That done really good, and I know there was other counties. If it was highway patrol related, they couldn't call us. They would reach out to those counties and say, "Hey," and it happened.
I think Charleston has
not
one
just,
too. Really.
Yes. Charleston was real big into investigations down there. So Lexington, I think
Right.
Lexington, Richland maybe have one, or did at one point. Whether they're still doing it, I don't know. But they would reach out and say, "Hey, can we get a specialized unit to come in to our county, and do this investigation or assist us in this investigation?" So, yeah, and like I said, that just kind of, once again, going back to the men and women that started MAIT and the training and the job that they done, that just carried on throughout the state, into other agencies, into other communities. So once again, it was a good thing for the citizens of South Carolina, all the way.
So, and I guess in closing, as you look back on your career now, I see you, and you don't look like you've changed or aged much at all, and that's a good thing, and it looks like you're doing wonderful. It looks like you're doing great, which is always good after a career like yours, and it was your career. It expanded so many different areas, and so now that you're in the twilight of your life, if you will, and you're retired now, it looks like you're still helping the people of South Carolina and still giving back. So just tell me in closing, what you're doing now with your life as your law enforcement career is over with, which it's never over with. I mean, you're always going to walk into a restaurant and sit facing the front door and do these little bitty things, or when people's talking to you, for some reason, I don't know about you, but I can tell when they're like kind of joshing me a little bit and stuff like that. And I equate that back to my law enforcement career. So just tell me a little bit about how life's going for you now.
Life's going good. And I mean, I'll be the first to tell you again that, I was just one person. Thank you for having me on this to talk about MAIT, because I was very passionate about it. It was something that I hold really dear to my heart. But, without the people, once again, that started it, that saw the need for this, that saw the training and got the training and got the equipment, that started paving the road. Without the people that work with me, not, for me or anything like that, but the people that work with me, without the people above me, the people under me, the people beside me, when I started, I'm nothing.
Definitely a team effort.
So definitely from like I said, from the beginning with the Piedmont team, with the leadership there, like I said, Dale Smith, Matt Sims, Jimmy Chastain, David Mothers, and then lieutenants coming up throughout my career, Ricky Dixon, Randall Maffitt, James Day, working under the captains, Rob Lee and Mike Dangerfield, and working with Johnny Rosado, which was the captain when I actually retired. Um, to the guys and gals that work with me on my team, like I said, together, and it was a complete team effort. You know, uh, we were successful. It wasn't because of me. It wasn't nothing I done. It was because of everything that everybody done that made it that way. But you know, once again, having that good role models ahead and people that pushed you from under, that expected from you. A family that supported you throughout the whole
That's
process.
definitely important.
Um, that without those, none of this would have been
Right.
possible. Uh, Currently, I actually am a court security
Okay.
officer at the federal courthouse in Greenville. So I get to go over there and still wearing a gun, still walking around now with federal judges and watching the back door and the front door of a federal courthouse. So still volunteer at the fire department, and I guess I'll do that till I can't pass a physical anymore. And I'll come out here and let them feed me and
Right.
stuff. But like I said, I am who I am, and I believe I am in the position in life that I am because of the people that showed me the way, and more importantly, my parents who, like I said, were married to each other for 48 years. I mean, it was just, something that you don't see a lot of.
Not anymore.
No. And like I said, the men in the community, the troopers that I saw growing up, just the Highway Patrol in general. I mean, I'm retired, got all that stuff, and want to pull behind me in the road now. So no crap, let's hit the speed limit. Let's, because I'm always riding with my seatbelt on, but it's just that I have that much respect, for the Highway Patrol and for law enforcement in general. I don't care who you are, what agency you with, you put your pants on the same way I do, one leg at a time. I'm no better, they're no better, period. Together as law enforcement team, we can make this thing work. But, I just have just a respect for the Highway Patrol and I'm so grateful to have been able to have a 27 and a half year career with them and make some outstanding friends on and off the job. Some good memories, some really good memories. There are those other memories that, not from people, but just as a team, we managed to get through.
What kind of advice? What kind of advice could you give some of our listeners to and watchers? What kind of advice could you give them in reference to? I guess if anybody can give advice on driving and safety and stuff like that, what are, just in closing, what are some of the things that people can do? Because you mentioned seat belt, and that's what got me thinking about it right quick. What can people do to be safe?
3 major causes in our MAIT investigations was speed. So please slow down.
Okay.
Please slow down. I mean, people don't realize, and it's something in teaching that 1125 class that I knew, but I never really put it in a perspective that at 55 miles an hour, for you to see a hazard, react to the hazard, and slide to a stop, it's a little over the length of a football field.
Wow.
So, it put it in perspective for me. I mean, I was able to do the math, and we talked about the math throughout the whole MAIT career, this other stuff. But to actually, when you look at them young adults and you tell them, hey, imagine going down the road, and there's videos in the class where people would take their eye off the road to look at their cell phone, for 4 seconds. At 55 miles an hour, you're traveling 80 feet per second for 4 seconds. You just traveled the length of a football field, not looking at the road. Okay, so slow down. Pay attention to what's going on. Use your hand-free stuff. Don't be texting. Don't be talking, on your phone. Distractive. I know it's easier said than done. Wear your seatbelts. Ejections. And you're always going to have that story that, my uncle's brother's cousin, got thrown out of a car and he lived because
he didn't have his seatbelt on.
Because he didn't have a seatbelt on. No, he lived because
that's
wasn't done
right.
That's why he lived. Okay, but I understand that argument, but it's like it's a harsh reality. But we took more pictures of dead people not wearing seatbelts than we ever did that were actually wearing seatbelts.
I just don't want to take that chance. What you just brought up, I've heard a million times, and I'm being facetious, but about the brother's cousin if I didn't have my seatbelt on. But and that's quite possible. It's quite possible. It's quite possible that a seatbelt could cause an injury, break a rib, whatever. But I don't. The chances are slim to none, and it really comes down to choice. Would you not say?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people say, hey, I don't want somebody to tell me what I've got to do, what I ain't got to do. Okay, I get that, but, we all grew up with rules in the house. Mama said don't get no cookie for supper, you didn't get no cookie. Okay, kind of the same way. It's just an adult version of it. But, wear your seatbelts. Don't drink and drive. Like I said, those were the 3 things. You'd be surprised at people that were speeding, not wearing their seatbelts, and drinking and driving. Unfortunately, and you kind of hit on some stuff early, today's society, road rage. I don't know what people are thinking now. I saw a video the other day on YouTube or one of those things, that one of the little reels, guys driving down the road and apparently somebody's tailgating him to the point he don't like it. So he reaches and gets his gun between the console. No. As the car passes him on the right, he shoots out his own windows and into the windshield. And I'm like, what are you doing? You see all these things where people are just running over each other now over road rage.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'll be the first one to get upset and mad. Somebody gets too close to me, but I'm not going to do nothing like that. I'm on pull over, let them pass me, slow down, do whatever I got to do. But, those things, and the only reason it aggravates me is because I know this is how they drive. So that, heaven forbid it happen, but they go 2 miles up the road and they hit somebody, Trooper man going to get there and they're going to say, man, it wasn't my fault. I was way back there. I wasn't following too close. No, dude, I didn't see you do it for 4 cars. I know you're following too close. You're in too big of a hurry. And like I said, being on both sides of it, I know what they're going to say when the trooper gets there. How many times you going to fail to get right-of-way rig? They pull out in front of somebody and go, well, that car was speeding. Okay, so you chose to pull out in front of a speed car? Was that a wise
they
move?
hit me. I don't, know, and this seems to come from more of the older generation, but, I can't tell you how many wrecks that I've worked where, somebody, maybe advanced in age, pulled out, backed out, whatever, and I get there and I have, Lord forbid, I have to charge the lady or the man, and they're like, how can it be my fault? And I'm like, well, you backed out in front of somebody, or you turned in front of somebody, or whatever the case may be. And they're like, but I don't understand. They hit me. I'm like, oh, well, and then you got to go through explaining that. But I think what you're alluding to is being a defensive driver
Absolutely.
and not being
Absolutely.
aggressive.
You know, one of the things that, and once again, my son will tell you, you know, he drives with this mindset because it's something that I taught him in the Live 25 class, and I'm assuming they're still teaching today. What if?
Yes.
What if? What if that car comes into my lane? What if that car don't stop at the stop sign? What if that car runs a red light? What if the driver's drinking and driving? What if, you know, and you can play this game when you're driving down the road. What if? And if you're asking and you're looking, you're thinking, that's putting you in that defensive mindset.
And you know, you make a good point. And it was a MAIT team guy who said, Chris, and he was with me one day because we were friends and we were driving, and I noticed when he would come to a stop light, he would, when it would turn green, we would sit there for about a second and a half or 2 seconds, and I'm like, go, you know, and you know, in fact, I think I do beeped his horn behind me, or us, or him, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, Chris, I don't care about that. And I said, well, you need to. And then we proceeded to go through the intersection, and he said, I have worked so many wrecks because as soon as that light turned green, somebody took off, but coming the other way, somebody was trying to beat a yellow light. So, and that has always stuck in my mind, and I do it now. So, but Bruce, listen, Lieutenant, I want to say so very much from the bottom of my heart how much you meant to me in my career and how much I learned from you. You probably didn't know how much of an impact you had on me. That's the reason why I called you and wanted to get you on. And I'm glad you accepted my offer. And I know everybody watching and listening is going to be glad that you came on as well, because you are important. You have given your life, much of it, to everybody else in the state of South Carolina, and of course, everybody that comes through South Carolina, the traveling public. And now you're still doing it. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on Straight Trooper Talk. And you know, I just thank you so very much. And I hope everything continues to go well with you and your family. And I appreciate so very much what you've done and what you are continuing to do for the people of South Carolina. So,
hey, man, I'm glad you thought about me and called me, because if, you know, give me an opportunity to talk about the Highway Patrol and the MAIT team, I'm there all day.
Absolutely. Everybody, I thank you for watching another edition of Straight Trooper Talk. We're going to have people like this gentleman on time after time, hopefully week after week. So continue to join us every week here on Straight Trooper Talk. If you want to see more of Straight Trooper Talk, get on our website. Each and every week we'll be having somebody within the law enforcement and the first responder community. Straight Trooper Talk is going to have each and every type of law enforcement officer that you can think about. Somebody within the first responder community, EMS, military, active, some retired. So, but join us each week here on Straight Trooper Talk, www.straighttroopertalk, and stay tuned and stay safe. Thanks.